When I think about all the Pokemon introduced in Gold and Silver, these two, Sunflora and Jumpluff, are never at the top of my mind. As someone who's very much a fan of the grass type, I have tried to use these two on my teams in the past, but they have always underperformed and I end up boxing them before the end of the playthrough. This was especially true for me as a kid because I really liked Jumpluff's design and I wanted to make it work as a part of my team, but I just couldn't stand how little damage it dealt. All of that said, in modern times I don't play the game with multiple Pokemon. Just one Pokemon, that's all you need. You don't need to switch Pokemon. You don't need team building. These are solo runs, so I'm not going to have the ability to box either of these weak grass types today. Let's see how Sunflora and Jumpluff do in solo challenges of Pokemon Crystal. The rules for this challenge are I can only use my starter in battle, no items in battle, no major glitches or exploits, and finally I am not allowed to use evasion boosting moves until level 100. The process for these versus videos is that I film the Pokemon I think is going to do better first, and then I film the weaker Pokemon second, just to hopefully give the underdog a slight experience advantage. Today I'm going to be starting with Sunflora. I do think this is the better of the two, largely because of its base stats. It has 75 HP in attack, 55 defense, 105 special attack, which is actually quite good, 85 special defense, and only 30 speed. I'm going to quickly wrap around and talk about its special attack again because this is the second highest special attack value of all grass type Pokemon in the game. The only other grass type with a higher special attack is Vileplume. Also, Sunflora's special attack is tied with Pokemon like Sceptile. I just don't believe that, honestly. Like both Vileplume and Sceptile, it has a medium slow growth rate, which is the best one for a solo challenge. Things also continue to get better when we look at its learn set. It starts with Absorb, Pound, and Growth. Growth boosts the damage of Absorb, Absorb allows it to heal, and Pound gives it coverage whenever Absorb is just not gonna cut it. And speaking of cutting things, it gets Razor Leaf at level 10. This move is fantastic. I think Sunflora would be honestly broken as a backport into Generation 1. I just recently did Roselia though, and that thing was also really good in Generation 1, so I'll have to wait to do Sunflora. I want to make sure that I'm having some degree of type diversity. Beyond that, through level up, it gets Sunny Day at level 19, Petal Dance at 31, and Solar Beam at 46. Obviously, it seems like the developers wanted this thing to use Growth to boost its damage, and then use Sunny Day to further boost damage into a move like Solar Beam. All of that seems great until you remember the fact that this thing has 30 base speed. Through TM and HM, it gets some of the generic moves, but it lacks Swift and Headbutt, so I have to rely on Return for normal type damage. Beyond that, it gets Giga Drain and Solar Beam, and really only one coverage move in the form of Sludge Bomb. For some grass types, this is great coverage because it's also a poison type move, and most grass types have the poison type, but Sunflora doesn't. It's a mono grass type. That said, Sunflora is much better than its prior evolution, Sunkern, which is one of the worst Pokemon in existence. Just so everyone knows, Sunkern has the second lowest base stat total of all Pokemon, only just barely by 5 points, beating out Wishy-Washy in its solo form. I'm really not looking forward to the day when I have to run Sunkern in Crystal. It is going to be awful, especially against Red. Before we get into the run, I want to draw your attention to one quick thing, which is the colors on my overlay. They are all the old Bulbapedia colors. I apologize for this. I was unable to refilm the footage because I accidentally forgot to record a replay file for Sunflora. Also, for consistency within this video, I'm going to keep the colors constant for the second playthroughs. Okay, let's talk about the early game. Both of these grass types have a type weakness to Falkner's flying type Pokemon. That said, his level 7 Pidgey and level 9 Pidgeotto are just not that good, and the only flying type move on his set is Pidgeotto's Gust. The trainer that is actually far more intimidating is Birdkeeper Abe, who is the first mandatory trainer in the gym. His Spearow is level 9, it has a high attack stat, and because of his AI modification, which is offensive, he is only going to spam Peck, never using Growl or Leer. With Sunflora, I battled all of the mandatory trainers up until this point because I had Pound for the bug types, and so I was hoping that level 11 would be enough to get by the Spearow. Its Peck does about a quarter in damage to me, Razor Leaf is doing just under half, and so I am able to finish his Pokemon off in only 2 hits in this case because I got a critical hit. Okay, with him finished, it is now time for the first gym leader. Actually, before that, I've got to talk about this video's sponsor, Raycon. Here's a throwback for anyone who's been with this channel for a long time. When my wife was my girlfriend, she bought me a pair of Raycon earbuds. I use them constantly when doing work, exercising, and when braving trips to the grocery store. Recently, Raycon released their upgraded everyday earbuds, which have so many additional features. I kid you not, their old passive noise cancellation was good, so much so that I couldn't hear my wife when she was talking to me in the same room, but now they have active noise cancellation. For me personally, the multi-point connectivity feature is a must because I constantly need to switch between my PC for filming these challenges and then back to my Mac for editing the videos. The earbuds come in a variety of new colors, they have 32-hour battery life, and 10 minutes of charging provides 90 minutes of listening. With the cost of living rising so much lately, I think we're all looking for affordable options, and Raycon is perfect because their earbuds are inexpensive while offering a fantastic feature set. They're also committed to your satisfaction because they have a 30-day happiness guarantee. Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/scottsthoughts to get 15% off your Raycon purchase plus free shipping. Side note, I'm really in love with their magic spin cable. It's this awesome water type blue color. It also has this pivot point so it swivels back and forth, and the connector is magnetic so it can detach really easily. This way I can quickly switch devices on and off from it. These little things make me way too excited. Thanks Raycon for giving me this little bit of joy. Okay, let's get back to the video and face Falkner. At the beginning of this battle, I want to draw your attention to the effective powers listed in the top left. Razor Leaf has an effective power of 41, likely 0.5 because my overlay rounds down, and Pound's effective power is 40. With a higher special attack stat, it's always going to make sense to use Razor Leaf instead of using Pound, even for these flying type Pokemon. Because Pidgey doesn't have any flying type moves, and it's always going to be using Tackle because of type effectiveness, Mudslap just doesn't do enough damage. I can essentially set up for free here with Growth, and then use Razor Leaf to knock out Falkner's Pokemon. I set up to +3, this felt like enough for me. I use Absorb to knock the Pidgey out, gaining back some health, and then he sends in his Pidgeotto. Gust actually does a decent amount of damage, around a quarter, but it's not enough because Razor Leaf is doing much more than half each turn, so Sunflora finishes Falkner off. That's a first split of 6 minutes and 21 seconds. Not bad for a grass type, but I expect that Bugsy might be a little bit more difficult. Before that though, let's talk about Jumpluff. It's a novel type pairing grass and flying, which was first introduced to the series in Generation 2. It's also really cute, which I want to emphasize over and over again with this thing because it really doesn't have much else going for it. For base stats, it has 75 HP, 55 attack, 70 defense, 55 special attack. It's the same as its physical attack, like why? 85 special defense and 110 speed. If I had to summarize these stats, it's okay at defense, terrible at attack, and it moves fast. It also levels up quickly because it has the medium slow growth rate, and that is important because its level up moveset is not very good. It starts with Splash, Synthesis, Tail Whip, and Tackle. Then through level up, it gets amazing moves like Poison Powder, Stun Spore, Sleep Powder, Leech Seed, Cotton Spore, and finally Mega Drain at level 44. When compared with Sunflora, its TM and HM learn set is very similar. It lacks Sludge Bomb, but it does have Headbutt. Other than that, it's basically the same. I hope with that information you now understand why I think Jumpluff is going to perform worse in this challenge. Both of these Pokemon are going to be going up against the rival when he has Cyndaquil. This is because all of my challenges, I make sure that the rival picks the Pokemon that is super effective against the starter that I have, or at least the rival that is going to be strongest against me. Many people ask me why I make this choice since I could go up against the starter that's weak to my Pokemon, and the reason is I want to play these challenges in the spirit of the game. If you do a regular playthrough and you pick Chikorita for your starter, then the rival will have the starter that is super effective against you. Yes, this does mean if I ever do a solo challenge in Generation 6, the rival will take the starter that is weak to my starter. I'm not arbitrarily trying to make the game more challenging or easier for myself, I am just trying to play the game in the way that feels most natural. Similarly to Sunflora, once I reach Birdkeeper Abe, I save the game just to be safe, but I think Jumpluff also has a decent way by him. While its attack stat is low, I can use Tail Whip to lower Spearow's defense and then Tackle to deal a lot of damage. If his pecs are doing too much to me, I can use Synthesis to recover my health and then continue the battle, finishing his bird off. Okay, so Falkner is likely going to be a similar scenario. Of course, he can't use Mudslap here because I'm a flying type, so his Pidgey only has access to Tackle. I can't set up, so just using Tackle seemed like the best option. It takes me a total of 3 hits to knock out his lead, and then he sends in his ace. Okay, here I think it is better to use Tail Whip. I lower its defense by 1 stage, and then his Gust does less damage than I was expecting. My Tackle is doing about a third, maybe a quarter. Looks like it's going to take 4 hits to knock out. That said, by using Synthesis and a Berry worry, I just have enough health and he can't outlast me. Jumpluff clocks in with a first split of 6 minutes and 43 seconds. That's 22 seconds slower than Sunflora, largely because Tackle is just worse than Razor Leaf in the early game. These two are still very close. Jumpluff has not yet fallen off, and it also has an advantage in the next section of the game. The flying type means that it's going to take less damage from Bugsy's Scyther. Before going to Azalea Town though, I'm going to backtrack to the earliest route of the game so that I can pick up the Pink Bow. This is only available after you defeat Falkner, and it boosts the power of normal type moves by 10%. Proceeding with the playthrough, my Jumpluff levels up to 13, and here it starts to learn Poison Powder. I think this was the developer's intention for Jumpluff. It's a fast Pokemon that can come out quickly and use a lot of status moves that really are a nuisance for your opponent. Of course, I'm going to get rid of Splash right now, and eventually I'm going to be putting Sleep Powder on my set, and that's going to be one of the MVP moves for Jumpluff. While Sleep isn't as good in Generation 2 as it is in Generation 1, I don't really think I have a better option with Jumpluff. I catch myself a Bellsprout. This is my Cut and Flash user, although I didn't pick up Flash and I won't be in any of these playthroughs. And then I head south of Violet City. Here I grab a Paralyzed Cure Berry. It's important for Lance later on, in most playthroughs that is. And after this I can talk to this guy who usually stops you from leaving the city, but now he will give you the Miracle Seed, which increases the power of grass type moves by 10%. This would be great, but I don't have any grass moves yet, so I'm gonna have to skip all of the hikers in Union Cave, because battling them with Tackle and a Jumpluff is just not a good idea. I fight the other trainers though for experience, just to level up as much as I can before I make my way into Azalea Town towards Bugsy. Before him, I have to take on the Rockets in Slowpoke Well. The experience levels Jumpluff up to 17, where it learns Sleep Powder. At the end of this section, I have to face the grunt that has coughing. He poisons Jumpluff right away, which is really annoying. Luckily though, I have Synthesis, so even with this status condition, it doesn't matter. If you're wondering why I didn't use Sleep Powder here to avoid the potential poison, it's just because I didn't want to waste time missing a bunch. I really only want to be using Sleep Powder when it's absolutely required. I don't want to just spam this move like I used to on my channel. Go and watch some of my older Generation 1 videos with Pokemon that can learn sleep-inducing moves if you want to get frustrated. Inside Bugsy's gym, I fight all of the trainers. This brings Jumpluff up to level 20 over a damage rounding threshold, and I figured that all of this gives me enough preparation for the second gym leader. His first Pokemon is Metapod, and I'm trying to put it to sleep, which is kind of a weird decision. If you're wondering why this is the case, I'm trying to dodge String Shot so that I don't have my speed lowered and then move second against the Scyther. If that was the case, then it would get one more hit in with Fury Cutter, making it slightly less likely for Jumpluff to survive. I get unlucky here because Sleep Powder misses, and so I do have my speed lowered, which is basically the worst case scenario, so let's just spam Tackle and knock it out. The Kakuna also needs a Sleep Powder just so I can dodge Poison Sting. I do not want to have a status condition for the Scyther. Luckily in this case, even when the Kakuna does wake up, I don't get statused, and I move on to the Scyther with green health. Alright, so let's see how much Fury Cutter is dealing. It's actually doing almost nothing, 3 hit points of damage on its first turn. I go for Tackle, then I try to use Sleep Powder to break its combo, and I manage it, so Scyther is once again going to do very little damage when it wakes up. Tackle is doing about a quarter, so it takes me 4 hits, and I finish Bugsy's ace off, earning myself the Hive badge. Before proceeding with the playthrough, I have to defeat the rival, and this is the first time his starter is intimidating for these grass types. Quilava knows Ember, but that's actually not the problem for Jumpluff. It has no moves that can hit the Ghastly. Either I would have to get really lucky with Sleep Powder, spam out all of Tackle, Tail Whip, and Synthesis, and then use Struggle to knock it out as well as his following team members, Zubat and Quilava, but I didn't think that that was the right choice, so I just took my first reset here. It's pretty funny that I didn't anticipate that with all the experience I have solo running these games. Anyways, I'm just gonna go back to the prior routes, train up to level 22, and learn Leech Seed in the place of Tail Whip. This is really not a great solution for the Ghastly. I put it to sleep first, then set up with Leech Seed, and I have to watch as it gets slowly drained. Right before I knock it out, it wakes up, uses Lick, and paralyzes Jumpluff, which is just perfect before the Quilava. I put it to sleep and start using Tackle. The damage is not great, but I can use Sleep Powder and heal with Synthesis to gain back health. I get quite lucky here because the Quilava stays asleep, and I'm able to take it down. The only Pokemon he has left over is Zubat. Now anyone who is watching in the background, just focus for the next 10 seconds. You really need to see this fight. First turn, because of paralysis, Zubat moves first, hits with Supersonic, and Jumpluff hits itself. On the second turn, Zubat does chip damage with Bite, and Jumpluff once again hits itself. On the third turn, Bite flinches Jumpluff, and this repeats on the fourth turn. Luckily on the fifth turn, I get a chance to attack, but once again I hit myself. Bite causes a third and fourth flinch after that, and it is worth noting that each one of these is not reducing my confusion's counter. So when I get a chance to attack again, Jumpluff does more damage to itself. I have 6 hit points left, but Bite is not able to do enough damage. Jumpluff survives on 3 hit points, snaps out of confusion, and paralysis activates, and Jumpluff loses anyway. Okay, I'm gonna do that fight again, and while we watch the footage play out, I want to do a quick summary of what happened there. Jumpluff hit itself in confusion and was flinched 4 times each. That is 8 turns in battle lost. And on the one turn where one of those 2 things didn't happen, it was prevented from attacking with paralysis, which is a 1 in 4 chance. I've had bad luck in the past with flinches and paralysis, like in my Lugia stream from like a year and a half ago, but I think this takes the prize for the most unlucky battle in Generation 2 that I've had so far. In the next fight, I don't get paralyzed by the Ghastly, so it is much easier for me. Then against the Quilava, things are straightforward, and the Zubat doesn't cause awfulness. It does confuse me, but this time Jumpluff actually attacks, but without paralysis and the chance for flinches, I'm able to easily win. In the forest, Jumpluff gets a major upgrade to its moveset because it can pick up the TM for Headbutt and teach this in the place of Tackle. In Goldenrod City, I explore the underground, going from the bottom entrance. This is less optimal. Since talking with Snowy, I am trying to go through the top entrance. That said, I played this playthrough with Jumpluff back in March, so it's quite old. North of the city, I fight the guy with Magmar. You'd think that this would be scary, but the trainers in Johto just aren't very good, so I defeat him without incident. After chatting with Floria, I explore National Park to catch myself a Psyduck, which is a fantastic water-type HM user. It can learn Strength, Waterfall, Surf, and Whirlpool. If you've been watching my content, I used to pick up a Krabby in Olivine City, and then later a Dratini in the Dragon's Den for Waterfall, but I think overall Psyduck is just a little bit better. Plus I can learn the moves Rock Smash and Dig just in case you want those for utility. Now I've got to head back to the Goldenrod City gym, and my flying type is looking like a liability now because Whitney's Miltank loves to use Rollout. Her first Pokemon, Clefairy, is only a problem if it rolls something ridiculous with Metronome, but in this case it just chooses Double Slap and I knock it out over 2 turns. Okay, so Miltank. My solution here is the fact that I am faster and I can use Sleep Powder to break its combo with Rollout. First turn it just goes for Stomp, doing a lot of damage. In some cases this move is more intimidating than the Rock type move, even though it's super effective. Next turn it does go for Rollout, but I break its combo quickly with Sleep Powder, and then Miltank wakes up and uses Attract on Jumpluff. Now, you might be wondering why I'm not using a female Pokemon like I do in Generation 3 to avoid Attract from Flannery. That is not possible in Generation 2 because the Attack DV determines the gender of your Pokemon. Essentially what it does is it looks up the gender ratio of the Pokemon, and if your Attack DV is under that threshold, then your Pokemon is female. But if it's above that threshold, then it's male. Jumpluff has a 50-50 split, so its Attack DV would need to be 7 in order to be female. Since I've had to rely so much on Tackle and Headbutt in the early game, I don't think that this is a compromise that would be worth it. Still, I have a way to play around all of this. As you can see, I can use Sleep Powder and Leech Seed to slowly chip away at the Miltank even when I'm not attacking due to infatuation. Eventually, Jumpluff pulls through and takes a first attempt victory over Whitney. That's a third split of 28 minutes and 2 seconds. Sunflora is going to struggle in the opposite locations. It is likely going to have a harder time against Bugsy, but an easier time against Whitney. Because I was doing this run second, I forgot to grab the Miracle Seed, which is a mistake. Don't worry, I correct it very soon after defeating some trainers and grabbing the Poison Barb. Of course, the Miracle Seed is great for Sunflora in the early game because I do have access to a grass type move, Razor Leaf, and once equipping this item, my effective power is now 90. The Rockets and Slowpoke Well are easy to deal with, and I don't fight all of the trainers in Bugsy's gym just because they don't have great damage against their Pokemon, especially the Weedle line. With that, my Sunflora is level 19, and I figured this would be enough to face Bugsy. His first Pokemon's Metapod, and I'm gonna set up against it using Growth to max out my special attack stat. The only move Bugsy can attack me with is Tackle, and I figured this would give Razor Leaf much more power when compared with Pound against both the Kakuna and the Scyther, even though they have double resistances to grass type attacks. I miss once against the Kakuna, luckily I don't get poisoned, and then I knock it out in a single hit. Alright, so it's time for the Scyther. I was so worried about this thing. Fury Cutter does a decent amount of damage on its first hit, Razor Leaf does less than half. Then Scyther gets a critical hit, bringing me down to low orange health. I go for Razor Leaf again, and luckily Sunflora also gets a crit, knocking out Bugsy's ace. I made it through on my first attempt, and I really don't think I should have. I think the obvious answer for this fight is leveling up to 20 before fighting Bugsy to be over a damage rounding threshold, giving Razor Leaf more damage at +6 against the Scyther. The rivals next, I have an answer for the Ghastly. I can just spam Razor Leaf and knock it out in 2 hits. I don't get paralyzed. He sends in Zubat next. It just misses its supersonic and gets completely destroyed by Razor Leaf after I set up with 2 growths. Last is Quilava. It's annoying, lowering my accuracy, but this isn't impactful. Eventually, I do take it out. With Sunflora, north of Goldenrod City in the National Park, I'm going to talk to this lady and pick up the Quick Claw. I think this item is going to be really important for success in the late game. Pokemon like Charizard and Aerodactyl are going to be very scary with base 30 speed. I catch myself a Psyduck, and then I head back to the gym to face Whitney. The strategy here is fairly simple. Set up with growth a decent amount, I go to +4, and then I should be able to take out the Miltank in likely 2 hits. And it's actually better than that for Sunflora, because after the Miltank uses Rollout, Razor Leaf just one-shots Whitney's ace. That's a third split of 19 minutes and 14 seconds, with 0 resets. I know there was a little bit of luck involved with that, but overall Sunflora's performing decently. Heading north of the city, I require myself to defeat the Sudowoodo. I don't really have a good reason why. After I knocked it out, I decided to use my Abra to teleport back to Goldenrod City to pick up the TM for Return so that I have a better normal type move with Sunflora. Right now, Return's power is 67, so it's at least decent, on par with Headbutt with just no secondary effect. Upon arriving in Ecruteak City, I backtrack to the earliest stages of the map to pick up the Pink Bow, and then I can use Teleport to arrive back at the most recent Pokemon Center. The Kimono Girls are next, and they're not major battles. They're quite simple and they give good experience yields. While I fight them with Sunflora, let's talk about Morty. His entire team consists of the Gengar line, which are ghost poison types, so they resist grass type moves and they are immune to normal moves. Can you see the problem for Sunflora? It only has grass and normal moves. Complicating matters is the fact that his first 2 ghosts have Curse. If they use this move, then I can't take my time setting up with growth, maximizing the damage from Razor Leaf like I did against Whitney and Bugsy. This leaves Sunflora with essentially 2 options. Either it just brute forces through his team with enough damage on Razor Leaf after 1 or 2 growths, or I use Hidden Power, but in my first playthroughs it is banned. If you're wondering why, it's because I was trying to make Crystal as interesting as possible for all of us, both me as the player and you as the viewer. If I allow Hidden Power in my first playthroughs, then I can just anticipate which trainer is going to be most problematic, give my Pokemon something like Hidden Power Ground, and then sweep through Morty without incident. I use Hidden Power Ground as an example because it's the most common physical type of Hidden Power. However, for grass types, it tends to be the case that Hidden Power Rock is actually slightly superior, just because it gives them coverage against flying type Pokemon and 4 times damage against the 2 Charizard that appear later in the run. Obviously, this isn't foreshadowing. Lance and Red, they're not going to be problems for these grass types. Who would think that? After completing the lighthouse for additional experience and fighting Dennis, I head back to Ecruteak City to battle the rival in Burned Tower. In Crystal version, this is mandatory before you fight Morty, and it also gives me a chance to test out my damage against a Haunter. On turn 1, it's going to go for Curse, so I set up with Growth, improving my damage for the rest of the battle. Then I use Razor Leaf to knock it out, so I'm doing more than half, which is good. Zubat's next. I continue using Razor Leaf, but it does less than half, and then the flying type hits me with Confuse Ray. Frustrating. I make it to the Quilava, Ember does a lot, I take Curse damage, and then Return just isn't enough to get the knockout. The obvious mistake here was just using Razor Leaf against the Zubat. Why did I do that? Return is obviously the correct choice. I one-shot in this case, and then I use Razor Leaf on the Quilava, hoping for a critical hit, and I actually get one, finishing the rival off. Well, actually, he has a Magnemite, but it's not a problem. In this case, Razor Leaf has enough damage. Okay, so ghosts, how are these gonna be? I'm saving before the first person in Morty's gym, which is never a good sign. His Ghastly are level 16, so will Razor Leaf knock them out? If I'm not, this is all gonna be so brutal. But luckily for me, Razor Leaf does have enough damage. Next, I want to see how much it does to this Haunter on this Medium's team, and it's doing more than half. I think that means I have at least a chance of defeating Morty using Razor Leaf, but also leveling up here allows me to learn the move Petal Dance, which has higher damage when compared with Razor Leaf. That said, I typically don't like this move because you're locked into it, and once it runs its course, your Pokemon gets confused. And I don't want to be using a Bitter Berry for Morty because I need the Mint Berry to counter Hypnosis. Even though I don't really want to be using this move, it is better than Absorb, so I might as well teach it to Sunflora. With that out of the way, let's see how the battle against Morty went. Ghastly is first, I set up Growth just one time and then knock it out after it uses Curse. By the way, in Generation 2, this Volatile status does not deal damage to your Pokemon if you knock the opponent's Pokemon out. So doing things in this order allows him to set up with a Curse, but it prevents me from taking damage from it, and I get to knock the Ghastly out. I could have of course moved first against it, but I wanted to ensure I had enough damage to two-shot the Gengar. Next is Haunter. I go for Petal Dance here for maximum damage, and I get the one-shot. Okay, this is really good. I need just 2 turns of this move, and I should be able to knock out the Gengar. First, it goes for Hypnosis, but my Mint Berry counters out the status condition. And then I realized that Petal Dance had no more turns left. This is strange for me because in Generation 1 it always has 3 to 4 turns, but there was also no text printed saying that Sunflora had been confused. In Generation 1, if you get put to sleep while executing a move like Thrash or Petal Dance, you will continue executing it once you wake up. Said more simply, the status move does not disrupt the move's execution. But in Generation 2, I think the status conditions do disrupt the execution. So the Gengar putting me to sleep took me out of Petal Dance and prevented confusion. That said, it all doesn't matter because the Gengar is faster, it puts Sunflora to sleep, and I have a loss. I come back in trying again, this time with +2. It doesn't give me the damage I need to use Razor Leaf against the Gengar. I once again get put to sleep and taken out by Dream Eater. Okay, so different strategy. What if I go to +3 against the Ghastly and just take some curse damage? This is okay. Plus, it only has Lick to deal damage, but it can cause paralysis. Alright, that's annoying. I knock out his first Pokemon, move on to the Haunter. I take a bit more damage from Nightshade. Razor Leaf once again, 1 hits, and I move on to the Gengar. Having paralysis might actually be an advantage here because it cannot put me to sleep, so it's going to rely on Shadow Ball. That said, it's doing a lot of damage, and with Curse on the field, my hopes were pretty much crushed. Until Razor Leaf comes through with a miracle critical hit, knocking the Gengar out. So I don't take any curse damage, and I move on to Morty's final Haunter. Alright, come on Sunflora, you can do this. Haunter goes for Nightshade, but its level is 23, so I survive with 3 hit points. If Razor Leaf misses, I lose. It doesn't, I hit the Haunter, do enough damage, and with that, Morty is defeated. Sunflora gets a 4th split of 30 minutes and 5 seconds. So Morty wasn't particularly easy using Sunflora, and things are actually much worse with Jumpluff. My current set is Headbutt, Sleep Powder, Leech Seed, and Synthesis. Of these moves, the only one that can damage Ghost-type Pokemon is Leech Seed. We saw how well that went against the rival in Azalea Town. The answer won't come through level up either because Mega Drain is the only move that can damage ghosts, and I get that at level 44. Solar Beam is only available once I have access to Waterfall outside of battle, and Giga Drain is only accessible once I defeat Erica in Kanto. So Jumpluff really suffers from the fact that it is not able to use Hidden Power here. There is one more potential for damage against Morty's Pokemon, and that's using the move Swagger, which is a TM that I can pick up in the Lighthouse. After grabbing it, I head back to Ecruteak City to face the rival in Burned Tower. Okay, so this is the trial run against Morty's ghosts, against the rival's Haunter. I put it to sleep with Sleep Powder, then establish Leech Seed, and after that I basically just have to waste time until I get damaged, and then I can use Synthesis to gain back health. Although I really don't want the Haunter to wake up, because if it does, it's going to put a curse on me, and that'll probably end the battle. Leech Seed drains it to about half health, then it wakes up, and it does curse me. Alright, I might win if I can defeat his other Pokemon fast enough. Quilava is taking half from Headbutt. I take some damage from Curse as well as Ember before taking it down. Magnemite takes 2 turns to knock out. I luckily got a flinch, and I also use Synthesis, but this isn't doing a great job of healing, especially when the electric type uses Sonic Boom. I heal just enough to survive 2 more curses, then I knock it out and move on to the final Pokemon, Zubat. So I am able to win, but this did not give me confidence for Morty. Before heading into the gym, I think it is time to give up Headbutt in favor of having Swagger, which leaves me with one of the most absurd movesets of all time. Swagger, Sleep Powder, Leech Seed, and Synthesis. There is not a single move here that deals direct damage. Here against this medium, you can see how useful Swagger is. Once I put her Pokemon to sleep, preventing them from using Curse, I can then use Swagger to confuse them and raise their attack stat. Also, I can continuously use Swagger even though they're already confused, boosting their attack even more, so that when they deal self-inflicted damage, it will also be increased. Leech Seed is helpful for healing, and I can use Synthesis to stall out if Curse gets bad. There's one flaw to this strategy, and it's really annoying. It's the fact that Lick can cause paralysis. This is not a problem because I don't care if I'm missing moves. What I care about is the fact that it allows Curse's damage to stack up very quickly. As a result, I do take a reset here to the medium. I come back in, and I defeat her on my second attempt, but now it's time for Morty, and things are gonna get really bad. Okay, so I want to play the footage of me fighting Morty without any cuts, just so that you can all experience the pain that I had to go through to win this battle. First of all, I'm gonna note a fact that I learned throughout the course of these battles, and that is if the first Ghastly or the first Haunter uses Curse, I'm pretty much going to lose. This is because so much health is drained every turn from the Volsdale status condition that I can't use Swagger and Leech Seed and Synthesis as well as Sleep Powder. Plus, if the ghosts wake up and attack me with a move like Nightshade or Shadow Ball, then I lose even more health and Jumpluff can't last long enough. Throughout these fights, I'm really hoping that Swagger would come through for me or Leech Seed would cause just enough healing to happen that in combination with Synthesis, I could sneak out a win. But it really won't happen unless I get lucky against the first two Pokemon. So let's think about what needs to happen in order for me to get that luck. Number one, I need to actually hit with Sleep Powder, which is a 75% chance. And I need to do this at least 2 times in a row, putting the Ghastly and the Haunter to sleep. To calculate the chance of this happening, I multiply the two percentages together, so 0.75 times 0.75, giving me a chance of 56.25% to land both Sleep Powders in a row. Now every turn the ghost sits in battle, it has a chance to wake up and use Curse because Morty loves using this move on his first turn. So then I need to be able to establish Swagger and hopefully Leech Seed during the time that they're asleep, and once they wake up, I am just hoping that they will hit themselves in confusion and either knock themselves out or give me more time to put them back to sleep. This is not a particularly easy scenario, and once I make it by them, things don't get better. I have the Mint Berry to cancel out Gengar's hypnosises, which is good for me, but I also need to be able to put it to sleep and cause the same scenario to happen to knock it out. That said, if I do make it here, things are much easier if I don't have Curse, but if I do, then I take a lot of damage every turn, so I have to stop using Swagger and use other moves like Synthesis to gain back my health. I'm just lucky Jumpluff doesn't have a speed problem in this battle. Currently it has 110 speed, and that really makes me wish I had a different stat spread. More special attack would be really helpful. Well, not in this case. Actually, no other stat would help me here, because if I had more HP, it still doesn't matter because Curse deals 25% of your health each turn. Okay, so as the Gengar defeats me, I just want to mention something about Generation 2, which is the fact that movepool is king. Last year I played Elekid in Pokemon Crystal, and it did all right, and then I played Raycon later on in the year, and it actually got a worse first playthrough time when compared with the baby Pokemon. When this happened, I was fundamentally shocked. I thought, am I just that bad of a player that I was unable to play the legendary well? And the answer is no, it has nothing to do with the Pokemon's raw stats. The enemies in Johto are so weak that it doesn't matter what your stats are, you're probably going to have enough damage to one-hit almost everything. The issue for Raikou was the fact that it only learned Spark, and by the time it got to Lance, it just didn't have an answer for his Pokemon, even though the electric move dealt neutral damage against the dragons. Elekid, on the other hand, had access to moves like Thunder Punch and Thunderbolt, greatly improving its damage earlier on into the playthrough. Plus, it has a better growth rate, so Raikou was leveling up more slowly and couldn't increase its damage quickly enough. This experience taught me the fact that the move pools are so important in this game. Having access to a diverse set of coverage moves really helps a Pokemon, and unfortunately for these two grass types, they just don't have that. Now, I mentioned Raikou not being able to train enough because of its slow growth rate, and that's another factor in Johto that complicates everything, making the move pool even more important. The random trainers are at such low levels that when you fight them, you don't gain that much experience. It sort of feels like the game has a self-imposed level cap just because of the amount of experience that's available in each portion of the game. For each individual growth rate, it feels like at some point you just kind of max out and you can't really level more unless you fight wild Pokemon, and then you sacrifice so much time. So if you're wondering why I didn't just buckle down and grind to level 44 to get access to Mega Drain for this fight, this is the reason. It would sacrifice far more time than just lucking through Morty, at least with decent luck. I do think eventually I'm going to be able to knock out the Ghastly and the Haunter and move on to his final Pokemon without the status condition. I went into this battle with a real time of 42 minutes and 8 seconds. I had 3 resets, and now we are actually going to skip ahead because I can't show you all the footage, because by the time I make it to the Gengar with no status condition in a decent position, the clock is at 55 minutes and 40 seconds, and my reset counter is at 18. I think that I might have missed out on a potential strategy to do some blackout training here every time I defeat the Ghastly Ghastly and the Haunter, just take the experience, black out, go back to the Pokemon Center, and then try Morty again. I bleed some extra time doing this by walking, and it would greatly inflate Jumpluff's game time, because every time you reset the cartridge, this metric is also rolled back to the last save point. I have to say, it felt so good to finally stack up swaggers on the Gengar and knock this thing out. This took way too long, and good riddance, I have made it to the final Haunter. But this battle is not over yet. I need to be able to put it to sleep and use swagger on it. Plus, I'm running low on PP. I only have 2 uses of Leech Seed left. And that brings us to the final potential strategy for Jumpluff to use to defeat Morty, and that is fighting a bunch of Pokemon, spamming out all your PP, and then defeating his ghosts using Struggle. The reason I didn't opt for that strategy is that you take recoil damage every time you use Struggle, and he has 4 Pokemon, so that's a decent amount of recoil. Plus, I figured that either the Ghastly or the Haunter would still get a curse off because I didn't believe in Jumpluff's ability to one-shot. Maybe I played this badly, but either way, at long last, I have finally defeated Morty. But with this dismal performance, Jumpluff is now more than 15 minutes slower than Sunflora. I honestly don't know what Jumpluff could do to come back now. Before heading to Chuck, I teach Jumpluff Return in the place of Swagger. That would be another disadvantage to doing Blackout training. It would lower my friendship, making Return less potent in this section of the game. On my way to Chuck, I fight some trainers at sea to level up, and then I go up against the tag team trainers inside the gym. Both of them are easy to defeat, so with that, let's take on Chuck. His first Pokemon is Primeape, I go for Return, it does more than half, and then I knock it out on the next turn after having my defense lowered once. Poliwrath is next, I put it to sleep, and Chuck uses his full heal to wake it up. Return is doing about a third, so I had the option to get a little bit risky and keep attacking, or get risky and use Sleep Powder, which is what I choose to do. Jumpluff misses, Poliwrath misses its Dynamic Punch, I miss again, and then Hypnosis hits from the Poliwrath and my Pokemon goes to sleep. After that he uses Dynamic Punch, but it does so little damage. So I don't think Jumpluff can lose here unless it gets really unlucky. And yeah, that's exactly what happens. It wakes up, hits itself in confusion a total of 3 times, and Chuck wins. So my Grass Flying type lost to the Water Fighting type. Jumpluff is so bad. Let's just keep remembering how cute it is. I fly back to Violet City, grab a rare candy, then in the Lake of Rage I pick up another one and go up against the Gyarados. Sometimes it can be scary, but Jumpluff has enough health to survive Dragon Rages, so it's not an issue. After the Rocket plotline, I dispatch a bunch of Electrodes, and then head into Pryce's gym. I fought the one guy here who has 2 Shelter and Cloyster, but he doesn't give me enough experience to level up to 44 to get Mega Drain, so I did a little bit of additional training to get enough experience so that I could have this move for Pryce. After all, Jumpluff has a 4x weakness to his Ice-type moves, and after how Morty went, I don't want the embarrassment of losing to Pryce. Okay, so Seal is first, I go for Mega Drain and I get the one-shot. That's perfect. Next is Dugong, Mega Drain does more than half, it uses Aurora Beam, and it actually does a lot less than I was expecting. Following that is Piloswine, it does no Blizzard, so I decided to play a little bit safer, or at least what I consider to be safe, by using Sleep Powder, putting it to sleep, and then I start using Mega Drain, and luckily, it just gets a critical hit, knocking his ace out in only 1 turn. All is well with the world, Pryce was not able to get a victory. Following him, I have to take on Jasmine. This one is pretty easy for Jumpluff, as long as Sleep Powder hits against the Magnemites and I don't get paralyzed. After her first one, she sends in Steelix next, and of course it's weak to Mega Drain, so even though it's hitting me with things like Iron Tail and lowering my defense, plus it lowers it with Screech again, I still have enough damage and I'm able to knock it out, surviving 1 more Iron Tail. Last is Magnemite, this one also goes to sleep and I finish it off. The Rocket plotline in Radio Tower brings with it a lot of really annoying and useless trainers, but one of them is Petrol, this executive who has 5 coughing and 1 wheezing. In the past, when using another Johto grass type Meganium, I had so many struggles against him. The coughing loves to use self-destruct and sludge, and they also like to lower your accuracy with smokescreen. Making all of this worse, once you get to the wheezing, it does no explosion, which can do massive damage if you're at lowish health. Early on into the fight, everything goes wrong for Jumpluff. It has its accuracy lowered, and it also gets poisoned. In this case, I have Synthesis on my set, so I can heal health, which is helpful, and then I can put the wheezing to sleep and slowly chip away at it using Return. While playing this fight, the thing I was most scared of is running out of Synthesis PP, because this move can only be used a total of 5 times. With how much damage the enemy's Pokemon are dealing, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to outlast, and then this pesky coughing takes me to 10 hit points, I heal heal with Synthesis, take poison damage, and it crits me, bringing me down to 12 hit points. Okay, I can only heal 2 more times. Once again, it uses Sludge, but this time it doesn't crit, and I can knock it out with Mega Drain. Okay, there's only 1 coughing left. I put it to sleep so that it doesn't use Sludge, use my final Synthesis to heal back into green health, and then I 2-shot with Return. That was a close battle, but Jumpluff was able to pull through. The rival in the underground is next. Notably, his starter has not evolved into Typhlosion for this fight. This is the only starter that will not have evolved due to its level. I rely on Sleep Powder here, putting everything to sleep except the Sneasel, because funnily enough, it does not know an Ice type move. Okay, second Rocket Executive. This guy has 2 fire types, but don't worry, he's completely trash, no problems with even a Jumpluff. On my way through Ice Path, I pick up the TM for Rest, which I think is going to be useful later on. Clearing the cave, I do a little bit of additional training before I head into the gym to face Clair, the Dragon-type specialist. Okay, so Jumpluff is a medium slow growth rate Pokemon. It's a little bit over leveled in this fight, level 51, so I figured that Return might one-hit the Dragonair, and the answer is no, it doesn't, not even close. I'd probably need level 55 or 58 to be getting the consistent one-shots here. Without them, I'm going to be paralyzed because all 3 Dragonairs know Thunder Wave. I don't have a way to heal this status condition, so I'm just going to have to get through the fight with it, and yeah, that's not going to happen because the second Dragonair has Ice Beam, which is doing a lot of damage. As a result, Jumpluff takes a loss. So the strategy available to me that makes the most sense, wasting the least amount of time, is to spam Sleep Powder, putting all the Dragonairs to sleep before they can use Thunder Wave. Then I can 2-shot with Return and make it to the Kingdra. Actually, I can't because I tried to just attack the final Dragonair, hoping that I would do enough damage, or maybe it would miss Thunder Wave because of the AI's debuff on accuracy, but it doesn't, and I get paralyzed before her final Pokemon comes in. That said, it doesn't have very good moves against me, so I'm still pretty confident here. As you can see, Hyper Beam isn't doing very much. My Return does more than half, and after tanking another beam, Jumpluff emerges victorious. Okay, we're just gonna pause on this frame right here. The time is 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 35 seconds, and I have 20 resets, and Jumpluff has just defeated Clair. I'm gonna bring up the tier list now and compare some Pokemon's finish times with Jumpluff's current Clair split. Do remember, these comparisons aren't completely fair because I'm comparing final playthroughs with Jumpluff's first playthrough, but I do think that they give us a good sense for just how bad this grass type is. Earlier in the year, I played Sentret. Its time was 1 hour, 49 minutes and 5 seconds. Jumpluff is not going to beat this in its first playthrough. There's just no way at this time. A first stage baby Pokemon like Smoochum finished the game in 1 hour, 34 minutes and 22 seconds, and then babies that are better than that, like Magby and Elekid, both had times under 1 hour and 30 minutes. Another interesting fact about the tier list and my rankings currently is that it's very top heavy. The A tier is by far the most populous tier, with the B tier being in second. Down at the bottom of the tier list, we have mostly baby Pokemon and truly bad first stage Pokemon like Coughing. I'm starting to think that Jumpluff might be destined for one of the lower tiers in Crystal. Maybe we'll get an E tier finish, but a sub 2 hour time is also seeming unlikely at the current pace. Okay, so let's jump back over to Sunflora. Inside Chuck's gym, I immediately have problems against the tag team trainers. I miss a Razor Leaf, tank 2 double kicks, which are doing decent damage, and then when Razor Leaf finally hits, it does less than half, so the Hitmonlee defeats Sunflora. I tried again, this time defeating the Hitmonlee, but the Hitmonchan proves to be a little bit too tough, and Sunflora takes another reset. Okay, instead of taking more resets here, it just makes sense to go to the sea and fight a bunch of water-type Pokemon. I grind up to level 35 over the next damage rounding threshold, and then come back to face the tag team trainers again. Now with more damage, I miss once, and then I 2-shot the Hitmonlee, but I only have 24 hit points remaining for the Hitmonchan. I tried setting up growth to hopefully increase my damage, and then maybe Razor Leaf will get a critical hit, but it doesn't, and I take another reset. I think just going straight offensive there would have been the better choice because I would have a higher chance to crit with Razor Leaf and do more damage to the Hitmonchan. The real issue here is missing Razor Leafs. In the next battle, I try Petal Dance for more damage, and I get a critical hit against against the Hitmonlee. This allows me to have green health for the Hitmonchan, and so I finish it this time, although I didn't feel very good about any of those fights. With the tag team trainers finished, I clear the 2 trainers in the gym and then go up against Chuck. Now hopefully this isn't going to be as bad as it was for Jumpluff. With Sunflora I have an advantage, which is growth, so I set up to +1 before knocking out the Primeape. Well, before almost knocking out the Primeape, it survives with a sliver of health and uses Karate Chop, getting a critical hit, bringing me down to 4 hit points. Alright, this is not a good situation. Poliwrath is next. Now, I am super effective, but it moves first because Sunflora is slower than it by 1 speed. It chooses Dynamic Punch, so it's probably going to miss, but no, it doesn't. And Sunflora faints, getting a reset here to Chuck. I went into that fight without healing, so I'm going to go back to the Pokemon Center and heal now, and then fight Chuck again with a little bit more health. I shouldn't be having problems here, but just for good measure, I set up a little bit longer against the Primeape. I take very little damage, then the Poliwrath just uses Mind Reader, and I finish it with a single Razor Leaf. Unlike Jumpluff, Sunflora does not have enough health to survive 3 Dragon Rages from the Gyarados, so I need to be able to knock it out in 3 turns or less. Luckily for me, I have enough damage to do this, and while it does flinch me with Bite, because yes, the wild Gyarados is faster than Sunflora, eventually I pull through. Okay, so now let's face Pryce. He is much easier with Sunflora because Razor Leaf and Petal Dance are just much better moves when compared with Mega Drain. Also, I don't have a double weakness here to Ice-type moves, so even when I get hit by things like Aurora Beam, they just aren't doing much damage. I miss on the Piloswine, but it uses Fury Attack. By the way, recently I found out from Snowy why this thing doesn't always use Blizzard, instead choosing things like Fury Attack, which is an absolutely awful choice. The reason is simple, the AI does not check damage on multi-hit moves like Fury Attack. It just has a flat chance to use these moves when compared with something like Blizzard or Icy Wind. So yeah, Piloswine just wastes its time, and I knock it out with a single Razor Leaf. Jasmine is different with Sunflora. Where Pryce was easier, Jasmine is more difficult because her Magnemites cannot be put to sleep. Yes, this is one of Sunflora's biggest downsides. It does not get a sleep-inducing move. This isn't the worst thing in the world because Magnemite can't do very much damage to Sunflora due to my typing. As a result, I can set up with Growth a little bit to +2 and then knock it out with a single hit, even though it's not very effective. Steelix is next. Of course, Razor Leaf with boosts from Growth does enough damage to one-shot the Steel Ground type, then she only has 1 Magnemite left and it's easy to clean up. Time for Petrol in the radio tower. I wasn't sure if I should go for Return right away or set up with Growth. In the end, I decide to go for the setup. Luckily, the Coughing misses its first Smokescreen, and it actually misses its second one as well, giving me +2 for free. The result of this good luck is that now Razor Leaf can one-shot the Coughing, so if I don't miss, I'm gonna sweep through his team until the Wheezing, which is exactly what happens. For it to have more damage, I use Petal Dance, and I actually get the 1 hit. Because this move continues on the next turn, I keep sweeping his team, and while I am confused for the final Coughing, I managed to pull through, getting an attack in, sweeping Petrol's team for free. That was much more dominant than Jumpluff, but largely due to luck. If I had -2 accuracy, I think things would have been a little bit more difficult. The rival in the underground is next, and this fight is different. I can't put the Golbat to sleep, and I'm slower than it by 5 speed. Also, I'm slower than the Haunter, Sneasel, and Quilava. The only Pokemon that Sunflora outspeeds is the Magnemite. I get confused, take some damage, then he sends in Quilava. Flame Wheel does a lot, Sunflora hits itself, and then the rival's ace earns him a victory. The next fight goes even worse because I get confused. Wing Attack is doing tons of damage, and Sunflora doesn't even make it by the Golbat. I tried for a 3rd time, and things are not going my way, so I think I need to do something else. I go to the department store to sell items that I've collected to this point in the playthrough, and then I buy 5 protein and 3 calcium. I wanted to increase my attack stat to improve returns damage, and whenever you use calcium in Generation 2, it increases both your special attack and special defense, because the stat experience and the IVs for these 2 stats are unified like they were in Generation 1. If you're wondering how the game calculates the difference between these 2 stats, it is just with the Pokemon's base stat values. Okay, let's try the rival again now that my stats have been improved. And once again, I get confused, hit myself a bunch, and have another loss. Time to fight some trainers for additional experience. There are people that pop up around the Lake of Rage that have decent experience yields. Also, once I finish them off, I can head south to this guard gate and grab the TM for Sludge Bomb. I head through Ice Path, grabbing the TM for Rest, and I continue my training, leveling up to 46, where I have the chance to learn Solar Beam. I figure that Petal Dance and Solar Beam are kind of similar in how you have to approach them. They both have downsides, so I decided to take Solar Beam just because it has more raw damage. Okay, let's head back to the rival because now I am speed tied tied with the Golbat. I win this interaction, allowing my Sunflora to move first and hit with Return, which one-shots his lead. Next is Quilava. I am faster than it because it only has 64 speed. Return one-shots, and from there things get easier. The Magnemite paralyzes me, which is annoying, but the Haunter and the Sneasel are not very good. The Executive with Houndoom is useless as usual, and then I grab the TM for Sunny Day. With it in hand, I head back to Blackthorn City to face Clair. Okay, can Sunflora do what Jumpluff couldn't and one-shot the Dragonairs using Return? The answer is obviously yes. As a result of this, I sweep through her first 3 Pokemon, and typically after this kind of performance, the Kingdra isn't an issue, which is exactly what happens. And so Sunflora is almost half an hour ahead when it defeats Clair. There's only one more major battle before the league, and it's the rival in Victory Road. He leads with Sneasel, which once again does not know an Ice-type move. I just one-shot using Return, and then Golbat outspeeds again. This time not using Confuse Ray, so I'm able to one-shot and move on to the Typhlosion. It does some damage with Flame Wheel. It's also faster, so it gets 2 attacks in before I knock it out. Magneton is third last. This is unfortunate because it's probably going to paralyze me, and it definitely will if Razor Leaf misses. As a result of this, it uses Sonic Boom, and I can't even two-shot with my Grass-type move. I skipped a bunch of the training before Victory Road, so I'm now going to backtrack and do a bunch of that to level up more. I get stuck in this battle against a cool trainer. His Magneton paralyzes me, and he has 2 more Pokemon after that. Sunflora hits itself, and yeah, I have a loss. I hadn't saved recently, so I decided to black out here rather than resetting. I come back, take my revenge, level up to 55, and then I face the rival again. The additional levels give me the outspeed on the Golbat, so it's free, and then Typhlosion is still faster, but I have more health left over, so I felt like this was going to go fairly well, but then Flame Wheel gets a critical hit. As a result, I don't have much health left over for the Magneton, and after it paralyzes me, the Hunter just chip damage with Shadow Ball, but it doesn't even matter because the Kadabra would have finished me anyway. If the Typhlosion doesn't get a critical hit, then I should be able to win. Still, the Magneton is a little bit intimidating, but when Razor Leaf crits, I can one-shot. Because of that luck, I'm able to sweep the Haunter and the following Kadabra and make it to the Elite Four. With Jumpluff, before making it to Victory Road, I grab the TM for Solar Beam just in case I need this, but I'm hoping that I don't need to teach it, because if I do, I'm probably going to want Sunny Day at the same time, and that means I would have to give up 2 move slots. Now, in a surprising turn of events, Jumpluff actually defeats the rival with greater ease than Sunflora, largely just again because it has access to Sleep Powder. The Golbat, the Typhlosion, and the Magneton are not scary when you can just put them to sleep and avoid their moves. I continue with my sleep addiction against the Haunter, and then the Kadabra is an easy one-hit with Return. In recent times, I have learned that before the Elite Four in Johto, it tends to make sense to use your rare candies. This gives Pokemon better times against trainers like Lance, and so with Jumpluff, I make this decision using all 7, bringing it from level 54 up to 61. Okay, let's face the Elite Four. Will is first, and here Jumpluff's speed is an advantage because I'm going to move first against all of his Pokemon. That won't be the case for Sunflora. I didn't think Return would be one-shotting, so I put Xatu to sleep and then knock it out with Return, but I do get the one hit, so I have enough damage I can obviously just one-shot the Jinx that follows. His Ace Xatu is next, and this one I also thought I wasn't going to one-shot, and I was correct in this case, 2-hitting with Return after Sleep Powder. Then I move on to his 2 bulky Pokemon, Executor and Slowbro, but they're not a threat because they don't have good damages, plus the Executor just tries to use Leech Seed on Jumpluff, which obviously doesn't work, and Mega Drain does massive damage to the Slowbro. It can't survive my second one, even though it set up Amnesia. Koga's next, and he is so rarely a problem in these challenges, I often just kind of skip through his team, not mentioning much about it. In Nuzlocke, he's quite scary because the Crobat likes to set up with Double Team after inflicting Toxic on your Pokemon, and with only Synthesis for recovery, I cannot heal the poison status. I felt like preventing it altogether with Sleep Powder might be the best choice, but Koga has a full restore and a full heal that he can use to eliminate my status conditions whenever I inflict them. Then because of Double Team, I miss the Crobat and it hits me with Toxic, which is really annoying. This fight is not going well, especially because he has 2 steel types left over. The first one's Venomoth, obviously it resists my attacks, so it survives. Uses Supersonic, I hit myself, take poison damage, it chips away at me with Psychic, and brings Jumpluff down to red health. Alright, I'm not going to make it because he switched out his Gyarados, so he has too many Pokemon left over, and with that I take my first reset during the league. In the next fight, I get toxicked not by the Crobat, but by the Venomoth, which is frustrating because then the Fortress is next. It also looks like Return is only doing about a quarter, maybe slightly less. I tried using Mega Drain for special damage, but of course it's doubly resisted, so it does so little, and as a result of poison, Jumpluff falls for a second time. Okay, instead of using the Pink Bow, I am going to exchange it for a Poison Cure Berry, just so I can get rid of Toxic at least once. However, joke's on me, this time I don't need it. I put the Venomoth to sleep, knock it out in 2 hits, move on to the Fortress. It does essentially nothing, and with that, I defeat Koga and move on to Bruno. Alright, I'm a flying type, and I haven't mentioned this once in the video, but Jumpluff gets no damage dealing flying type moves. How is that fair? This isn't Generation 1, Game Freak. I should at least have one stab move. In this case, a physical flying type move would be really helpful against the fighting types, but right now I can't one-shot even Hitmonchan, which is a little bit frustrating. Machamp, on the other hand, just misses its Rock Slide. Bruno uses a Max Potion, but it doesn't save his ace. After that, I one-shot the Hitmonlee, and that's that. Usually I'm worried about Karen because she loves her status moves, but in this case, I love my status moves with Jumpluff, so I put the Umbreon to sleep and then knock it out over 2 turns, dodging Confuse Ray and Sand Attack. It feels so good. Next, she has a Houndoom, which is super effective with Flamethrower, but that doesn't matter if you put the fire type to sleep, which is exactly what I do. After that, she's got a Vileplume, it goes to sleep and gets knocked out over 2 turns. Then she has Gengar. I tried to put it to sleep, but it uses Curse, which is annoying. I also don't really have good damage against it, so I continued trying the status move. It fails a bunch, and finally when it works, I have to use Synthesis to gain back my health, otherwise I'll lose to the status. This takes a while because I have to consistently heal and chip away with Mega Drain, the only move I can hit ghost types with, but eventually I do pull it off and move on to her final Pokemon, Murkrow. It knows Quick Attack, but other than that, it's basically useless. So, Jumpluff defeats Karen and is now ready to take on Lance, the champion. But before that, let's see how Sunflora does with the league. Speed is a liability here because Will's Xatu moves first. Luckily, it doesn't go for Confuse Ray, instead prioritizing Psychic and then Sunflora's Return one-shots. Next is Jinx. It is also a threat because it chooses Lovely Kiss moving first, but luckily it misses and I get another one-hit. Executor goes down to 2 hits from Return. After that is his ace Xatu, which is simple to knock out with Return. It does take 3 hits because of a Max Potion, and it also confuses me along the way, which is really annoying, but that's it because Slowbro is last and I have super effective damage against it in the form of Solar Beam or Razor Leaf. Of course I use the latter. Okay, Koga was an issue with Jumpluff, and I think he could be more problematic with Sunflora, just because I don't have a sleep-inducing move, so I can't block his status moves. That said, the Venomoth just misses Toxic, which is convenient. The Muck doesn't really do anything, it just minimizes instead of attacking, and I don't miss on the Crobat, so even though it does status me, I only have 1 Pokemon left to take out, and it's the Fortress. That said, it loves to spam Protect when you have a status condition, and it also knows Explosion once you get on low health. In this case though, special damage from Razor Leaf is doing enough that I take it down to orange health. Then I charge my Solar Beam and knock it out so that it doesn't use Explosion. With that, Koga is defeated and I move on to Bruno. Unlike with Jumpluff, I think there's an easier option here. The Hitmontop is basically useless, just spamming Quick Attack constantly, doing chip damage. It is so little damage, I can set up growth as much as I want. I go to +4 and then I use Razor Leaf to sweep through both of the Hitmons, although I do take damage as I go because again my speed is so low. The Hitmonchan has priority Mach Punch and the Hitmonlee is faster by 4 speed, but the Machamp isn't, so Razor Leaf just one-shots, and of course the Onix is going to fall apart when Razor Leaf doesn't miss. Even though it gets to attack me, it does so little damage with a same type attack bonus Rock Slide that yeah, it just proves how bad Onix is. I'm actually gonna do an Onix playthrough in Pokemon Crystal for the next video in this series, and it's a playthrough that I did, and I'm definitely gonna have to do a second one, but procrastination is getting the best of me for hopefully reasons that are obvious. Next is Karen. I can't block Sand Attack, but because of the AI's 25% debuff, it just misses. Then she uses Confuse Ray, which is annoying, but since Umbreon does such little damage, I just set up with Growth until I have +3 and then I knock it out with Razor Leaf. Vileplume is next, I go for return, but it doesn't one-shot, so the grass type paralyzes me. It doesn't matter that my speed's cut, but my consistency is what I'm worried about. The Houndoom is faster naturally, it goes for Flamethrower, dealing massive damage, and while I do survive and knock it out with return, I am not in a great position for the following Gengar and Murkrow. Gengar inflicts Curse, Paralysis prevents my movement, and with that, Sunflora takes a reset. Okay, so to get rid of Paralysis, I can just teach Rest in the place of Solar Beam, and I should now have an answer for the Vileplume. That said, the Umbreon just gets really out of control in this fight, taking my accuracy all the way down to -5. I now have a 36% chance to hit with moves like Return, and a 34% chance to hit with Razor Leaf. Needless to say, this battle ends in a loss, this time from the Houndoom. I tried equipping the Quick Claw in hopes to move first against the Houndoom, but once again I get controlled by the Umbreon's status moves. The Vileplume does go down to a single hit, and the Quick Claw doesn't activate on Erase, so that's a third reset. I didn't want to waste more time here, and even though I'm about to level up, I do think I need to use rare candies to go up to level 64. I could have blocked out, but I thought that that would waste more time and inflate my game time, which is something I didn't want to do in my first run. I think I can get through Karen, and how bad could Red be? Well, I actually can't get by Karen. She defeats me 2 more times before I'm finally able to use Rest, move past the Vileplume without a status condition, arrive at the Houndoom, and miss my Razor Leaf and get 2 hit by Flamethrower. Okay, so I didn't save after using my rare candies, so now I am going to black out and do the entire league again for more experience. At a higher level, I don't have issues, and I make it back to Karen with no resets. Nothing has really changed for this fight other than the fact that I'm at a higher level. I set up to +6, which is what I was trying to do before, and the Umbreon takes me down to orange health. I know the Vileplume is probably going to try Stun Spore. It actually doesn't, instead using Acid. I use Rest, Heal, it takes me some time, but eventually I knock it out and move on to her ace, Houndoom. Okay, so hopefully Razor Leaf with +6 is going to do enough damage to the fire type, and after surviving a Flamethrower, it does. Gengar's next, it gets lucky with Lick paralyzing Sunflora on its first turn in battle, and Razor Leaf fails because of accuracy. You can see here I briefly debated using Rest, but in the end I choose the correct move, Razor Leaf, I attack, survive a Lick, and knock the Gengar out. All that's left is Murkrow, and as I said before, it's not very good. I think we can see here just how good Sleep Powder and a high speed stat are for Jumpluff. They allow it to get by a bunch of hurdles that Sunflora can't brute force. Okay, so I'm level 60, and now I have to take on Lance. I am playing this playthrough first, and I decided to use rare candies because I don't have very much speed, and the first 2 Dragonites have 92 speed, and the third one has 98 speed. I figured if I use some candies here, I can at least move first against some of Lance's Pokemon, so go up to level 65, and now it's time for the champion. Gyarados is up first, and it's a pretty incompetent lead because it likes to set up Rain Dance on the first turn, and boosting the power of Grass-type moves is not what it needs to do. This would be problematic only if I'm choosing to use Solar Beam for this battle, but why would you do that? All of his Pokemon are flying types. Instead, I'm just going to set up Growth to maximize my special attack, and then I'll hopefully have enough damage for the rest of the battle. I take my time before knocking his lead out, using Rest to heal a little bit, and then, after he hits a Hyper Beam, I knock the Gyarados out with Razor Leaf. Dragonite's next. Now I really wasn't sure if Razor Leaf would one-hit because it is doubly resisted, and of course it doesn't, doing only half. Luckily Thunder Wave misses, so I take the Dragonite out for free anyway. Aerodactyl's next. It's faster, hitting with a wing attack, doing a decent amount of damage, but Razor Leaf finishes it in a single turn. Charizard's next, and that's where my plan kind of falls apart. Like, what am I supposed to do against this thing? In Generation 1, Growth would have helped me stand up against the Flamethrowers, but in this case it doesn't. Plus I'm slower, so the Fire-type move brings me down to 8 hit points. Then it inflicts a burn, reducing my damage from Return, but I wouldn't have done enough anyway. Okay, so what is the answer for Lance? And I don't have one. I make it to the Aerodactyl, I try to use Rest to heal my health before the Charizard, and this doesn't work because the Aerodactyl is doing enough damage with Wing Attack to knock me out before I wake up. I think it is once again time for Sunflora to black out and come back to this fight at a higher level. I'll at least improve my results if I can get to 99 speed, speed so that I'm faster than the 3rd Dragonite. Defeating all the Elite Four members is quite easy until Karen. Then she gets problematic with the Gengar inflicting Curse. I have to get rid of Paralysis and get caught in a sort of healing loop. On the turn I wake up and try and knock it out, it uses Destiny Bond, so that's going to be another blackout. I might as well just take this experience and continue leveling up for Lance. This made me think a little bit more deeply about the fight against him. His Charizard has 108 speed, so if I continue blacking out, soon Sunflora will be at least speed tied with it. And after one more blackout against Karen and another league run, my Sunflora has arrived at Lance with exactly 108 speed, so hopefully I will win the tie against Charizard when I make it there. I set up to +6 as I did before, healing, and then I also use Rest to remove Paralysis against the Dragonite. Typically in this fight you either want to be using a Paralyzed Cure Berry to get rid of Thunder Wave if the Dragonites are going to attack you, or you can just use Rest to get rid of it. The other strategy of course is using Hidden Power Ice, which is by far the best Hidden Power typing in Generation 2. This allows Pokemon to just one-shot the Dragonites and never have to deal with this problem. It's a great way to play around Rest if you hate this move, but I don't know why you would hate this move. That's completely illogical. It's one of the best moves in the game. And yes, this is a direct call out. You know who you are. Okay, so Aerodactyl, I get the Quick Claw activation on, one-hitting with Razor Leaf. That's perfect. Charizard is next. I'm a higher level, so I don't take very much from Flamethrower, and with full health, I was pretty confident. However, Return does not get the one hit. That said, I can tank 2 hits because of my luck against the Aerodactyl, and then move on to the rest of Lance's team. His level 50 Dragonite is next. It does no Fire Blast, so I need to be a little bit careful of that. Return does more than half. The Dragonite just chooses Outrage, not doing very much, and I finish it off. All that's left is his final Dragonite, but he sent this one out last because of its moveset. It's just not very good against grass types. Its best move is Thunder, and it's really not that good in this case. Rest allows me to consistently heal and knock it out without ever having to chance something like a critical hit from Hyper Beam. With that, Sunflora defeats Lance and gets a league split of 1 hour, 40 minutes, and 39 seconds. Let's once again check in with the tier list and see how Sunflora's current results are stacking up against other Pokemon's second playthrough finishes. With a time over 1 hour and 40 minutes, it is not faster than a Pokemon like Smoochum. As I said before, it had a time of 1 hour 34 minutes and 22 seconds. And yes, that is defeating Red. With how long it takes to beat all of the trainers in Kanto, it doesn't look like we're going to clock in under the hour and 50 mark, but maybe, just maybe, Sunflora has a chance of getting a sub 2 hour time in its first run. After all, we do need more Pokemon in the E tier. Although, if it's going to be an E tier finish, that really means I won't be able to optimize it very much, and I'm hoping that that's not the case. But with how these first playthroughs are going, I think that might be the case. Hidden Power is going to have to do major work in the second runs. Alright, so how does Jumpluff do against the champion? And the answer is simply that it has Sleep Powder. I can put his Pokemon to sleep, and while this move is kind of risky, it doesn't matter when it's working. In this case, I'm putting everything to sleep, including the Aerodactyl. It wakes up, does a little bit of damage, and then I take it out. Okay, Charizard's next. I put it to sleep, knocking it out as well, and from there I have basically tackled all of the major hurdles in the battle. The final Dragonite is going to take more than 2 hits to knock out, and Lance is using his items here to wake it up. As a result, it takes some extra time, but Jumpluff does pull it off. That leaves only the first Dragonite, which has Thunder. In this case, it would do neutral damage, but I just put it to sleep, and yeah, Jumpluff wins on its first attempt against Lance. It gets a league time of 1 hour, 47 minutes, and 46 seconds. I didn't think this was possible, but because of speed, Sunflora dropped so much time during the league that Jumpluff has been able to close the gap. If I could paint a picture for what's going on here, essentially we're watching a marathon where 2 people are running. The person who's in the lead trips, falls, knocks themselves out, rolls into a ditch, lays there for like 5 minutes, then wakes up and starts running again. That's Sunflora, and Jumpluff this entire time has just kind of been going along steadily, tripping every once in a while every time Sleep Powder misses. That said, the sleep move is not going to be needed in Kanto because these trainers are all pathetic. Honestly, I think that's the best word for them. There really haven't been many playthroughs where I have struggled against trainers here. Sometimes I have resets against Misty when the Lapras catches me off guard with something like Perish Song, but that's quite rare. Especially because the Lapras either needs to be faster than my Pokemon, which is so rare because it has 64 speed, or it needs to survive a single hit, which is just not going to happen today. This is not foreshadowing, don't worry, Sunflora is not going to struggle against the water type specialist. Unless the Misty's Starmie causes issues with Confuse Ray. But we'll get to her when when we talk about Sunflora in Johto. For now, heading into Celadon City, I am going to skip Curse with Jumpluff because I don't think it's going to need it to defeat Red. A lot of you think that that setup move is always the answer for Red, and it's just not the case, especially with certain types of Pokemon or with Pokemon that have low special defense stats. Okay, next I should talk about Erica, because once I defeat her, she gives me the TM for Giga Drain, and this feels like it comes way too late in the playthrough. Giga Drain is not really an amazing move, and I could teach it in the place of Mega Drain, but just opening my inventory and going through the dialogue doesn't seem worth it. I will bleed more time by doing that, and Mega Drain is just going to be enough to defeat Misty as well as Brock, and from there it's not very useful against Blaine and Janine, but both of them are quite incompetent. Well, Blaine actually does a decent amount of damage to me with his Rapidash, but not enough to knock out Jumpluff, so I move on to Janine. Now, normally she is completely pathetic, but this time she does poison me. This status condition was bad when I was facing Koga, but in this case it doesn't cause problems because her entire team is awful. Alright, there's only one more gym leader left in Kanto, let's face Blue. Things are pretty straightforward here. Sleep Powder is great. I can put the Pidgeot to sleep, knock it out with Return over the course of 2 turns. Arcanine is next. I can put it to sleep as well. I basically have to, because you see how much Flamethrower is doing. Almost half. That said, when it's snoozing, and in Generation 2, it's not intimidating. Alakazam's next. I don't think I should have put it to sleep. I knock it out in 1 hit with Return. Mega Drain one-shots the Rhydon. Gyarados just sets up Rain Dance and then uses Twister, a completely pathetic move. All that's left is Executor, but it can't use Leech Seed, and Egg Bomb doesn't do very much damage. So that's it for Blue. Now, Jumpluff is ready to take on Red. Before the battle, I'm going to use Rare Candies to raise it from level 70 up to 73, and then I do teach Giga Drain in the place of Mega Drain, just so I have a little bit more recovery, especially against the Blastoise. In a refreshing turn of events, I'm going to face Red without Rest and without Curse. Also without Protect. I have like none of the standard moves for this fight. I am essentially relying on Sleep Powder. Let's see how it does. Up first is Pikachu. I didn't think I would one-shot it, so I put it to sleep to dodge Charm, and then I knock it out with 2 hits from Return. Actually, with a little bit more, because Red does use his full restores. He will only ever use these on Pikachu just because of his AI script. It's a little bit weird, but that's why we don't see him recovering a Pokemon like the Snorlax or the Charizard, which is actually really good for most playthroughs. If he could use his full restores elsewhere, this fight would be so much more difficult. The next Pokemon on his team that he's going to choose to send in is one that has a move that has super effective damage against Jumpluff. Now I'm a little bit confused here because next he chooses to send in Charizard, although the Venusaur does have Sunny Day, and we'll see with Sunflora that he's choosing to send in the Grass type before the Fire type. I miss with my Sleep Powder, and as a result I take a massive hit from Flamethrower, plus it inflicts a burn, so that's a reset. When Sleep Powder doesn't miss, I can knock out the Charizard in 4 turns. It actually takes quite a while. That does give it time to wake up and attack again, but it doesn't in this case, and I move on to the Espeon. It goes to sleep, I knock it out over 2 turns, moving on to the Snorlax, and this is where things slow down. Return is doing about a quarter each turn. It's just barely not enough to knock it out in 4 hits, and Snorlax wakes up using Rest, healing to full health. This is when I started to get a little bit worried about my PP, however, it's not going to matter because eventually I am able to finish off the Snorlax and move on to the Venusaur. I have 6 uses of Return. Even though it sets up Sunny Day, this doesn't matter. Once I finish it off, last is Blastoise. Okay, so I put it to sleep. Giga Drain is super effective, doing almost half, and I can 3-hit, never allowing the Water type to attack, and with that, Red is defeated. Jumpluff gets a time of 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 48 seconds, with 24 resets at level 73, with a game time of 7 hours and 5 minutes. Okay, so with Sunflora, I teased the battle against Misty because no, I am not going to be faster than the Starmie. It does use Confuse Ray, and it also knows Ice Beam. Luckily, Sunflora does not hit itself in confusion, so I finish her ace off and she's not a problem. Even in cases like Blaine, I am not having problems. His Rapidash is faster, but it can't do very much damage. In this case, he does the Pryce or Blue move where he chooses Fury Attack instead of Fire Blast, so he does even less than I was expecting, and I knock the Rapidash out over 2 turns. Okay, so let's take on Blue in then this one should be more difficult for Sunflora when compared with Jumpluff. I cannot rely on Sleep Powder against any of his Pokemon. Also, the turn ordering is a little bit different here because he sends in his Executor second because it has Sunny Day, which is a fire type move. I think the AI script might also not want to send in Pokemon if your Pokemon has a type that is super effective against them. So Executor and Venusaur are held back by the AI when facing Jumpluff because it has the flying type. Joke's on the AI though, because Jumpluff doesn't have any flying type moves. One fear I had here with the Executor is it was going to set up Sunny Day before the Arcanine comes in, but it doesn't do this, which is really good for me because I can't put the fire type to sleep. As a result, it hits with 2 flamethrowers before I knock it out with Return, and I am left on red health. The leftovers recover a tiny bit, but I don't have enough health to survive the Alakazam's Psychic. At least that was my assumption, because I do survive Psychic with 8 hit points, and Return does enough. Gyarados is next. I have 3 more speed than it, allowing Sunflora to use Rest to heal to full. Hyper Beam gets a critical hit, so I have to use Rest again, just to heal and be safe. I really didn't want to throw this fight at this point. Eventually, I have green health, I'm able to strike back and knock out the Gyarados, moving on to the Rhydon, which of course is a simple one-hit with Razor Leaf. Inside Mount Silver, I level up just so I can get level 76 before taking on Red, and then I use my final 5 rare candies to boost Sunflora up to level 81. In this playthrough, I've kept growth on my moveset the entire time so that I can set it up here against the Pikachu while it just spams Thunder, doing almost nothing to my grass type. If I'm setting up my special attack, it doesn't matter that my physical attack is lowered with Charm, because then I can just use Razor Leaf for the rest of the battle, even when it's resisted by Pokemon. This also has a secondary benefit. If I use growth to boost my special attack and it goes over a value of 206, then my special defense will receive a badge boost. Normally there's a glitch preventing the special defense badge boost whenever your special stat is equal to or under 206. By the way, the 206 value doesn't include badge boosts, so it's the stat that you would read in the summary page when viewing your Pokemon. Because my overlay factors in the badge boosts to all of the stats in the bottom left, we need to see a stat value of 231 to get the special defense boost. Then the little badge icon pops up and we can see that my special defense is now accurately being recalculated. The reason this is important because it means Sunflora will take less damage from Red's Charizard. However, there is a complicating factor here because Red chooses Venusaur next because of the AI interaction I previously mentioned. I tried to stall it out using Rest so that Sun would not be on the field by the time the Charizard comes out, but eventually I knock it out and there is Sun on the field, and then Flamethrower just does way too much damage, and because Razor Leaf is doubly resisted, Charizard takes so little damage from it. So it might have been obvious to all of you, but this strategy is not going to work. Instead, I think it's time to change Sunflora's moveset and get a little bit more generic. I'll put Curse in the place of Return, and then Protect in the place of Razor Leaf. This way I can now set up my attack against the Pikachu, and while I am sacrificing speed, Sunflora was already too slow. This allows me to one-shot the Venusaur, but it sets up Sunny Day on the turn before the Charizard comes in. Then, it burns me with Flamethrower and I have a reset. Alright, if I have to keep resetting here, Sunflora might finish the game after Jumpluff. These times are getting really close. It looks like the Venusaur is always prioritizing Sunny Day on the first turn it comes into battle, so what's going to happen here is I need to one-shot the Charizard with Return, and to do that it needs to not burn me. It doesn't in this case, Return hits, and the Fiery Lizard goes down. But that leaves me with very low health for the Espeon. I can use Protect to buy time, gaining some health with the leftovers. I was hoping that my special defense boost would allow me to survive a Psychic at this health, but it doesn't even matter because the Espeon doesn't see that it can get a KO, so it sets up Reflect instead, and I knock it out with Return. Okay, only 2 Pokemon left over. Snorlax is the first of them. Because my defense is boosted with Curse, I can use Rest, take my time, tank the Body Slams, and then knock it out with Return. After that, only Blastoise remains, but it's a water type against a grass type. What could it possibly do? It sets up Rain Dance, and Return gets the one-shot. With that, Sunflora clocks in with a final time of 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 53 seconds, with 23 resets at level 81, with an unknown game time because I forgot to record the replay, and my splits files were also lost. Okay, let's bring up the tier list. Right now, these 2 Pokemon with times over 2 hours are in the F tier with their results, alongside Pokemon like Gligar, Natu, Smeargle. By the way, Smeargle should definitely not be in the F tier. It's much better. I'll have to re-rank it at some point soon. But other Pokemon that do deserve to be in the F tier are Togepi, Slugma, Igglybuff, and Coughing. So going into these second playthroughs, like I said before, hidden power has to be the key. Reflecting on the first runs, the battles that need to be solved are Morty, especially with Jumpluff, potentially Koga, definitely Lance, especially with Sunflora, and then finally Red, likely with Jumpluff. It seemed to struggle a little bit more when compared with Sunflora. In May of 2023, when I played Venusaur and Meganium, I found that Hidden Power Rock really helped grass types. It does a decent job against Morty because it's at least physical and neutral against the ghosts, which is usually enough. Also, it gives super effective coverage against flying and ice type Pokemon, and it also is decent against Lance, hitting for at least neutral damage against all of his Pokemon. The major advantage, of course, of Hidden Power Rock is that it does 4 times damage to the 2 Charizards that I have to eventually face. I went through, looked at some damage ranges, and then came back to do my follow-up playthroughs utilizing Hidden Power Rock with both of these Pokemon. I'm curious right now if you think I made the right choice. Leave a comment with your predictions, and if you think I made the wrong choice, suggest which Hidden Power typing you would choose. With my choice locked in as Hidden Power Rock, let's see how Sunflora did in its follow-up playthrough. The early game isn't an issue, so I'm not going to go through it in detail just because growth gives answers for Falkner, Bugsy, and Whitney. But as soon as I arrive in Ecruteak City, that's when things start to change. I go east to the Lake of Rage first, and this gives me an opportunity to fight some trainers who have good experience yields. This guy with both of the Nidos, this person with Nidoking, the Slowking guy, and this trainer with 2 Gyarados. With that I obtain Hidden Power Rock and I teach it in the place of Absorb right away. After clearing out the lighthouse, then I go up against the rival in Pokemon Tower. This is the first point where this move is very useful. Hidden Power Rock can knock out the Haunter after it uses Curse because yes, it is still faster. The Quilava then becomes a problem because it's also faster by 2 speed and it can use Smokescreen, lowering my accuracy, and with the status condition, this is going to end up being Sunflora's undoing. So that's my first reset in my second playthrough. In the next battle, the rival isn't problematic and then I head into Morty's gym. Here, Hidden Power Rock is really good, one-shotting most of the ghosts, so I don't have issues. Well, what about Morty himself? I have 1-hits on both the first Ghastly and first Haunter, meaning he cannot hit me with Curse this time around. Holding the Mint Berry, the Gengar can't put me to sleep unless it hits 2 Hypnosises in a row, and we all know how likely that is. Hidden Power Rock does more than half, so I knock it out in 2 hits and take a first attempt victory over the Ghost Specialist. Against the tag team trainers in Chuck's gym, I make a mistake by not choosing Return against the Hitmonlee. As a result, I take a little bit too much damage and the Hitmonchan does knock me out. That's my second reset. It's a little bit of a frustrating one. Oh well, I beat them on my second attempt. Chuck himself is not an issue for either of these Pokemon, so this is the last time I'm going to mention him. I do want to talk about how Hidden Power Rock does against Pryce, because theoretically, while it's the solution for him, for Sunflora it really isn't. Razor Leaf does more damage against all 3 of his Pokemon, the Seal, the Dugong, and the Piloswine. Plus with Sunflora's higher special attack, it just doesn't make sense to be using a physical move even when it's super effective. Jasmine's next. She's a little bit annoying with Sunflora. I do get paralyzed here, but because I have special damage, the Steelix isn't an issue. Okay, this is where we get into a little bit more of a detailed optimization. I'm gonna go through Ice Path first. This gives me access to 1 more protein before I go to the department store and buy more to increase Sunflora's stat experience. I'm doing this now so I can have Return, as well as additional Friendship, which does come from these vitamins, as well as the stats, so that when I face Petrol at the top of Radio Tower, I won't have issues. It turns out even with the stat boosts, the friendship boosts, and Return, I still don't have enough damage to one-shot the Coughing. I lost once, backtracked to grab the Pink Bow, and then came back, but I still don't have enough damage. Luckily for me, I don't get a second reset. Clair is where things really start falling apart for Sunflora. Hidden Power Rock is completely useless here, and because I'm level 48, I don't quite have the damage range I need to knock out the Dragonairs in a single hit. Because of this, I'm getting paralyzed, and I have a total of 3 resets in this battle. Just so everyone's aware, this is also a routing problem. I was trying to remove trainers so that Sunflora could hopefully get through the game slightly lower leveled and with a better time, but at level 48 I am essentially in the worst possible damage range for Sunflora, because if I level up to 50 over the next damage rounding threshold, my chance to knock out the Dragonairs becomes 97.6. At my current level, 2 lower, it's a chance of 37.8. Okay, so this playthrough is pretty sloppy, and that continues against the rival in Victory Road. I had multiple resets here because my Sunflora is just slightly too slow because I was skipping training. It was at this point while playing that I decided to do a third playthrough because this just isn't nearly as refined as I wanted to be. That said, I did continue with this playthrough, and while there are some bumps along the way during the league, I want to bring us all the way to Lance because this is where Hidden Power Rock fully falls apart. The issue for Sunflora is that with so little speed, I have to rely on rest to heal myself during the battle, and then the fact that Aerodactyl is followed by Charizard just leads to far too much damage. So the only only way I was able to win here is with the Quick Claw activating against one of them to give me the knockout. That said, Hidden Power Rock isn't even doing that much damage. While it does one-hit the Charizard, all of the other Pokemon are 2 hits. By the time I beat the league, I had a total of 22 resets, and I was really disappointed. Here's the thing, even though this run is disappointing for me, it is a chance for all of us to learn about Hidden Power Rock and how it interacts with grass types. So I decided to keep this run in the video for educational purposes. There are some bumps along the way at Blue, eventually I defeat him, and then I make it to Red. For Sunflora, this fight is actually very straightforward. The Pikachu is free setup, like I mentioned before. I don't think it will ever knock me out unless it gets subsequent crits and I lose a bunch of turns because of paralysis. Beyond that, the Venusaur comes in next, and this is really the moment that decides the fight. If it sets up Sunny Day, then the Charizard's damage range jumps up to 91 to 107% damage, so it has a chance to knock me out. But if it chooses Solar Beam, which is what happens here, then I'll just knock the Grass type out, move on to the Fire type, survive its hit, and proceed with the battle. Protect allows me to buy time against the Espeon as I did before, and from there, things are fairly self-explanatory. I can heal on the Snorlax because of my defense, and then Blastoise's Blizzard only does between 41 and 48% damage. So, Sunflora clocks in with a second playthrough time of 1 hour 43 minutes and 7 seconds, with 26 resets at level 74. This is a game time of 5 hours and 46 minutes. Okay, so if you left a comment in support of Hidden Power Rock, unfortunately you're wrong along with me. Sometimes I think the Crystal version is going to be more interesting than it ends up being. In this case, the right choice for Sunflora is the generic Hidden Power Ice. I usually say this is the best hidden power typing, and it really is. You have an attack DV of 15 and a defense DV of 13, leaving your HP untouched at 15, because that DV is calculated based on the others. My question with running Hidden Power Ice was, is Morty going to be a nightmare? My first reset comes before that though, against the rival in Burned Tower. The Quilava burned Sunflora, and if it hadn't, I think I would have won. That said, because of the status condition, I take a quick reset and then I head into Morty's gym. So let's examine these damage ranges. At level 34, Sunflora has a guaranteed one hit with Hidden Power Ice against the first Ghastly and the first Haunter. So once again, I do not need to worry about Curse. Also, the Gengar is a 2-shot with Hidden Power Ice, meaning it is equivalent with Hidden Power Rock. There is no difference in this fight, despite the fact that Hidden Power Ice is special, and yes, the ghosts have higher special defense. The thing to always remember is that in Pokemon, really what matters is the number of turns it takes to knock your opponent's Pokemon out. If this number is the same when considering two different moves, it actually doesn't matter. Choose the move that has more impacts on the playthrough throughout the rest of the run. And of course, Hidden Power Ice is that move. It synergizes well with Sunflora's higher special attack. In Radio Tower, it gives me a better way to fight Petrel's Coughing because they have low special defense. And of course, it completely crushes Clair's Dragonair so that I can't get paralyzed. You will have noticed that I got one extra reset at some point during the playthrough. I don't really want to talk about it. The Gyarados on the Lake of Rage is the thing that caused Sunflora to lose. It's really frustrating, but sometimes that happens with Pokemon that don't have enough HP to survive multiple hits from Dragon Rage. If you're wondering why I didn't just run away, you actually can't. You are forced to either catch it, knock it out, or use a Pokédoll. The Pokédoll is not allowed due to my items rule. I know that this is inconsistent with my Generation 1 rules. I make no attempt to be consistent with my rules across generations. Each game is very unique and individual, and my series have been started at different points in my development as a player and a thinker about this specific format. So yeah, I can't be consistent there, but anyways, Pokédoll's not allowed. I have to either knock the Gyarados out or catch it, and it has a bad catch rate, so I don't want to catch it, I have to knock it out. Okay, getting back to Hidden Power Ice, the rival before the league is actually made easier with this move because it's good against some of his Pokemon, specifically the Golbat. I've also taught Rest for this fight because I know that paralysis from the Magneton can be a problem, and as a result, I have no resets here. For the league, Hidden Power Ice is so good, Sunflora stomps Lance and makes it to Kanto, with the clock only being over the hour by roughly 5.5 minutes. This playthrough is really starting to come together. It's not going to be a good result, but it's also not going to be that bad. Probably just middle of the pack for a Johto Pokemon. Against Sabrina and Johto, I have an accuracy-induced reset, but she isn't regularly a problem as long as Sunflora is hitting with Return. I crush Blue, utilizing Curse as well as Hidden Power Ice because this move gives me special damage against the Rhydon. Finally, against Red, I can use the strategy that I put together before. Venusaur does not go for Sunny Day, and as a result, I win, clocking in with with a final Sunflora time of 1 hour 25 minutes and 25 seconds, with 3 resets, 0 blackouts at level 74. This is a game time of 5 hours and 29 minutes. Okay, so where has Sunflora earned itself a spot in my tier list? Well, hold that thought, because first we need to see how Jumpluff does in its follow-up playthroughs. Yes, I am doing 2 more Jumpluff runs so that we have a chance to contrast Hidden Power Rock with Hidden Power Ice on the other grass type. I wanted to be rigorous with my approach here so we could get the contrast with both of the Pokemon instead of just with Sunflora. Okay, first of all, we're going to start in the early game of this playthrough because I am completing Sprout Tower with both of these grass types in the early game. This makes Abe inside of Falkner's gym just a little bit easier. It's more important with Sunflora because it has low speed, but it also helps Jumpluff. And with Jumpluff, I want early game experience anyway because I need to get to level 22 before I face the rival. In this case, I was playing a little bit unfocused and I skipped some trainers in the second run, meaning I had to fight wild Pokemon to get this level, and that is definitely slower than just battling all of the mandatory trainers and optional trainers up until this point. Sleep Powder and Leech Seed luckily come through for me, giving me a victory against the rival's Ghastly on my first attempt, and then I can use Sleep Powder to break combos against Whitney. This is also the strategy that I used against Bugsy. After I grab Hidden Power Rock, I go into Morty's gym, and I have a really unfortunate blackout here. Fighting this medium, I get hit by Spite, so that I run out of uses of Hidden Power Rock, and as a result, I did try to get to Struggle to defeat her last Pokemon, but it doesn't work out because of Curse, and I have to blackout or reset. I did choose to reset here, which is probably a mistake, because then I have to go back and fight the rival again, and I lose a lot of time. Either way, I knew I had to come back and do another playthrough after this one, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. I didn't get that frustrated, although Jumpluff is a very frustrating Pokemon to play. I really don't think it's going to do well in a game like Emerald, because there are so many water types with ice coverage moves. Looking at Jumpluff's damage ranges against Morty, it has to 2-hit the first Haunter, so there is exposure to Curse. There are a couple of ways of playing this. One is using Sleep Powder, the other one is just attacking right away and hoping to knock out the Haunter and then get lucky against the Gengar. I'm not really sure which one is better. Of course, I'm favoring the sleep strategy and I do get 1 reset. But after that in my second battle, he's not that bad and I finish him off. From there, Hidden Power Rock really lets me down against Petrol. I have so many resets here with Jumpluff. I played Sunflora's second and third playthrough before I played Jumpluff's second and third playthrough, so I did have experience for this run. I used the vitamins as well as the pink bow, hoping that this would give me the damage ranges I needed for Petrol, but no, I still have multiple resets. In the end, I just have to get lucky and not have my accuracy dropped or get a status condition. Eventually, I pull through, move on to Clair, and of course here, Hidden Power Rock doesn't help, so I get 1 more reset. Hopefully all of you can see that Hidden Power Rock isn't the right answer. I'm sure that some of you are now going to suggest Hidden Power Fire for me because it helps a little bit with Jasmine, but it also helps against Koga, who is a major menace for Jumpluff. I was trying to examine my biases and maybe not use Rest for this fight, but no, it's just the right choice. You need to avoid Toxic. If you get poisoned, Jumpluff is going to lose because the Fortress takes so long to knock out. Beyond that, things don't get better because Hidden Power Rock is not helpful against Lance, like I said before. Luckily, Jumpluff has an answer in the form of Sleep Powder, so that is once again how I pull through on my first attempt. Alright, so let's go up against Red and see how Hidden Power Rock does against the Charizard, because that's really the thing that all of this is building towards. The answer is, drumroll please, it does not one-hit the Fire type even though it has 4 times damage. And speaking of 4 times damage, there's another Pokemon that has been silently waiting for the end of the video to make its real appearance. It's Blastoise. While I might have 4 times damage against the Charizard, which isn't even enough, the Blastoise has 4 times damage against Jumpluff, and Blizzard does so much damage that it will always knock Jumpluff out. It does between 103 and 122% damage. So the only way I can defeat the Blastoise with Jumpluff is if I put it to sleep and it never hits a Blizzard, or it misses with Blizzard. The more frustrating thing about this battle is the fact that Red is sending in his Blastoise last because it has a type weakness to my Jumpluff. What that means is that this bad grass type has to make it through his other 5 Pokemon, arrive at the final Blastoise after wasting a bunch of time, and then we gamble. This is not a satisfying way to end the run. So let's theoretically explore some options against the Blastoise. I could obviously be using Giga Drain here, which would just be better than Hidden Power Rock, and that will take less turns, raising my chance of success, but in the end I still just need to get lucky with Sleep Powder as well as Blizzard missing. The first thing that I went to was like, could Sunny Day be helpful against the water type, and the answer is no, because it's not going to set up Rain Dance because it doesn't want to use its water moves. It's just going to be choosing Blizzard because it sees enough damage. I could potentially use Swagger in combination with Sleep Powder like I did against Morty earlier on into the video to boost the Blastoise's attack so that hopefully it has less of a chance of hitting me with Blizzard every time it wakes up. This requires more dialogue time, plus I have to use Swagger and it has low accuracy, so then I'm chancing both Swagger and Sleep Powder, and that didn't seem like a recipe for success. The question then was obviously, when does Jumpluff survive one hit from Blizzard so that Blastoise will hopefully prioritize Rain Dance or just not one-hit me? This would definitely improve consistency, but unfortunately for Jumpluff, which has a medium slow growth rate, which becomes slower to level up in the late game after level 68, I would need to be level 78 to defeat the Blastoise. This is going to add a lot of additional time training. So there are two choices here available to the player. I can go up to level 78 and have a more consistent time against the Blastoise, although not a guarantee. Or I can stay around level 70, more ideally level 72 or 73, where Blastoise is not always going to knock me out in a single hit, but it most likely will. For my third playthrough, I decided to play the more risky option alongside Hidden Power Ice. As was the case for Sunflora, Hidden Power Ice is no different against Morty, so that fight is a net neutral interaction. Against Petrol, things are very different because Hidden Power Ice one-shots all of the coughing, so Jumpluff doesn't struggle here. That is a major improvement. Of course, I one-hit all of Clair's Dragonairs, so she is improved, and then upon arriving in the league, I struggle against Koga because of poison. I really wanted to get through this fight without rest, but no, the healing move is just the right choice because I have to be able to counter Toxic. After 2 resets, I added to my set for the synergy because I'm gonna need it in the late game anyway. Still, even with rest, Koga can cause resets. It's really annoying. Anyway, I beat him after a 3rd reset and proceed with the league. Lance is of course so much easier with Hidden Power Ice. The only Pokemon that survives and can do decent damage is the Charizard, but it's basically irrelevant when I'm one-shotting everything else. Okay, so from there it is time to face Red, and I have a different strategy for him. Number 1, I have Sleep Powder, and then I also have Protect, which helps me deplete the PP on Blizzard every time the Blastoise wakes up. The issue is not his PP though, it's mine, because I do not have what it takes to go the distance. I actually run out when facing the Blastoise, and while I did try to use Struggle to defeat him, it doesn't work out, and eventually Jumpluff faints. That was my 2nd reset of 2 against Red, and I went back into Johto to pick up PP ups just so I could have more uses of return for this battle. Even by doing that, things are not guaranteed. The Charizard can wake up and do massive damage with Flamethrower, the Espeon can hit you with Psychic, and then once I make it to the Blastoise, it is still a gamble. But eventually Jumpluff pulls through and clocks in with a 3rd playthrough time of 1 hour 44 minutes and 5 seconds, with 8 resets, 0 blackouts at level 73. This is a game time of 6 hours and 6 minutes. Okay, so that's it for the runs. Big thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, and also thank you to everyone who supports me behind the scenes making these videos possible. Now let's get into ranking these Pokemon in the Generation 2 Crystal version tier list. Sunflora's time of 1 hour 25 minutes and 25 seconds earns itself a spot in the B tier. This is just ahead of Elekid and just behind Dragonite. By the way, I intend to replay Dragonite very soon on stream, so stay tuned for that. It's gonna get a much better time now that I have my modern rooting, but it's never going to be amazing just because it has a slow growth rate. Overall, I'd say Sunflora performed about as I expected it. Its follow-up playthroughs were able to dramatically improve its result when compared with the first playthrough. That said, a time over 1 hour and 20 minutes is just not very good in Crystal version. But Jumpluff, of course, is much worse. Its time, 1 hour 44 minutes and 5 seconds, is not enough to get it a spot even in the C tier. It's going to be ranked behind Mantine and Lantern, just ahead of Murkrow and Teddiursa. While Jumpluff's result is not very good, and I'm kind of happy it got in the D tier, I'm a little bit sad that the E tier is still very lonely. It only contains Snubbull, Fampi, and Cleffa. I'll have to run another Pokemon that's really bad at some point to hopefully get another placement there. Maybe something like Hoot or Pidgey would work out, I'm not sure. Anyways, let me know if you have any other contenders for the E tier in mind, and then I'll do those runs at some point, probably next year, because the rest of this year is already planned out. Thanks so much for watching. Also, thanks to Raycon for sponsoring the video. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next one.